Imagine living in a world where summer never comes, where temperatures drop so low that the sea itself freezes solid, where your ancestors had to survive for 100,000 years in conditions that would kill most modern humans in hours. 20,000 years ago, our planet was in the grip of the last great ice age. Massive glaciers covered most of North America and Europe. The sea level was 400 feet lower than today. And in this frozen wasteland, somehow, our ancestors not only survived, they thrived. This is the story of humanity's greatest endurance test. How we survived when the world turned into a giant freezer. And how this frozen hell actually made us stronger, smarter, and more innovative than ever before. 20,000 years ago, Earth looked like a completely different planet. Imagine looking down from space and seeing white ice covering most of the land where major cities like New York, London, and Berlin exist today. These weren't just patches of snow. These were ice sheets over a mile thick. The Laurentide ice sheet covered most of Canada and the northern United States, stretching from the Atlantic to the Pacific. In Europe, the Fennoscandian ice sheet buried Scandinavia under billions of tons of ice. The global average temperature was about 10 degrees Celsius colder than today. That might not sound like much, but it was the difference between a livable world and a frozen wasteland. In some regions, winter temperatures regularly dropped to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. But here's what's truly remarkable. While most of the planet was locked in ice, humans were not only surviving but expanding their territory. Small groups of our ancestors, probably no more than a few thousand individuals total, were living in the narrow bands of land that remained habitable. These weren't primitive cave dwellers huddling helplessly in the cold. These were sophisticated survivors who had developed technologies and strategies that wouldn't look out of place in a modern survival manual. They had learned to read weather patterns, track animal migrations, and create tools specifically designed for Arctic survival. The Ice Age didn't just test human endurance. It forged the characteristics that would define our species for millennia to come. Faced with the ultimate survival challenge, our Ice Age ancestors became master inventors. Every aspect of their technology was designed around one simple principle: stay warm or die. They revolutionized clothing, creating the first truly effective winter gear. Using bone needles, some so fine they rival modern sewing equipment, they crafted multi-layered clothing systems from animal furs. They understood insulation principles that wouldn't be rediscovered by modern science for thousands of years. Their outermost layer was typically made from mammoth or bear fur, chosen specifically because these animals had evolved the best cold weather protection. Underneath, they wore layers of smaller animal furs, creating air pockets that trapped body heat. They even developed waterproof outer shells using treated animal skins. But clothing was just the beginning. They mastered fire in ways that go far beyond simply lighting wood. They learned to create portable heating systems, built sophisticated fire management techniques, and even developed methods for keeping fires burning continuously for months at a time. Their shelters were engineering marvels. Using mammoth bones as structural supports and animal hides as covering, they built homes that could withstand Arctic winds and maintain comfortable interior temperatures, even when it was deadly cold outside. Some of these shelters housed extended families of 15 to 20 people and included separate areas for food storage, tool-making, and even primitive workshops. Perhaps most impressively, they developed food preservation techniques that allowed them to survive months when no fresh food was available. They learned to smoke meat, create pemmican, a high-energy mixture of fat, protein, and berries, and even developed methods for storing vitamin-rich foods to prevent scurvy during the long winters. To survive the Ice Age, our ancestors had to hunt the giants. And the biggest giant of all was the woolly mammoth, an animal that stood 11 feet tall, weighed 6 tons, and had tusks longer than a grown man. Hunting a mammoth wasn't just about getting food. Though a single mammoth could feed a tribe for months, it was about obtaining everything needed for survival. Meat for food, fat for fuel, hide for shelter and clothing, bones for tools and building materials, and ivory for specialized implements. But how do you kill an animal that weighs 30 times more than you do, using only stone-tipped spears? The answer reveals the incredible intelligence and cooperation of our Ice Age ancestors. They developed sophisticated hunting strategies that required precise coordination, detailed knowledge of animal behavior, and incredible courage. One of their most effective techniques was the jump kill, driving mammoths over cliffs or into specially prepared pit traps. But they also developed direct hunting methods. Working in coordinated groups of 10 to 15 hunters, they would surround a mammoth and attack simultaneously from multiple angles. They used the animal's size against it. A mammoth couldn't turn quickly enough to defend against attacks from all sides. Their weapons were precisely engineered for mammoth hunting. They created composite spears with detachable heads designed to remain in the wound even after the shaft broke. Some spear points were specifically shaped to cause maximum internal damage, while others were designed to cut major blood vessels. Archaeological evidence from mammoth kill sites shows just how organized these hunts were. We find evidence of planned approach routes, coordinated attack positions, and systematic butchering techniques that allowed them to process an entire mammoth efficiently before the meat spoiled. These weren't desperate people randomly attacking dangerous animals. These were skilled professionals who had turned mammoth hunting into a science. The Ice Age didn't just change how humans lived, it changed how they thought, communicated, and organized their societies. Survival in such harsh conditions required unprecedented levels of cooperation and social organization. For the first time in human history, survival depended not just on individual skill, but on complex group coordination. A single mistake by one person could doom the entire tribe. This pressure created the first truly sophisticated human societies. They developed advanced communication systems, including some of the earliest known symbolic art. The cave paintings from this period weren't just decoration. They were information storage systems, teaching tools that passed on critical survival knowledge from generation to generation. These paintings show detailed information about animal behavior, seasonal migration patterns, and hunting strategies. They were like prehistoric survival manuals, ensuring that critical knowledge wouldn't be lost if individual experts died. They also created the first known trade networks, exchanging materials and knowledge across vast distances. Archaeological evidence shows tools made from materials that originated hundreds of miles away, indicating that Ice Age tribes maintained contact and cooperation across enormous territories. Perhaps most importantly, they developed sophisticated child-rearing strategies. In a world where one harsh winter could wipe out an entire group, children weren't just the future. They were the repository of all human knowledge. Ice Age societies invested enormous resources in ensuring children learned not just basic survival skills, but the accumulated wisdom of generations. They created the first known educational systems, with specialized knowledge keepers who were responsible for teaching young people everything from toolmaking to weather prediction to astronomical observation. As the Ice Age reached its peak 20,000 years ago, our ancestors accomplished something that seems almost impossible. They expanded into new territories, spreading across the globe even as the world became increasingly hostile to human life. This wasn't just movement. This was strategic expansion by people who had mastered survival in the world's most challenging environment. Having learned to thrive in Ice Age conditions, they were uniquely equipped to explore and settle previously unreachable territories. The lowered sea levels created land bridges that connected previously separated continents. The most famous of these was Beringia, the land bridge between Asia and North America that allowed the first humans to enter the Americas. But crossing into new continents wasn't a casual migration. It was a carefully planned expedition by people with advanced knowledge of navigation, weather patterns, and resource management. These weren't refugees fleeing harsh conditions. They were confident explorers expanding their territory. Within just a few thousand years, humans had spread from their Ice Age refuges to populate most of the habitable world. They reached Australia, settled the Americas from Alaska to Chile, and established permanent communities across Europe and Asia. What's remarkable is that each group adapted their Ice Age survival skills to their new environments. The same innovation and cooperation that allowed them to survive mammoth hunting in Siberia helped them develop new hunting strategies for American bison, new shelter designs for different climates, and new food preservation techniques for different ecosystems. They didn't just survive the Ice Age, they used it as a launching point for global human expansion. By the time the ice began to retreat, humans had become a truly global species for the first time in our history. When the Ice Age finally ended around 10,000 years ago, it left behind more than just melted glaciers and rising sea levels. It left behind a fundamentally changed human species, one that had been forged by 100,000 years of the ultimate survival challenge. The innovations developed during the Ice Age became the foundation of all human technology that followed. The clothing systems they created evolved into modern textiles. Their shelter designs influenced architecture for millennia. Their food preservation techniques laid the groundwork for agriculture and civilization. But perhaps more importantly, the Ice Age changed how humans think and organize themselves. The cooperation, planning, and knowledge-sharing required to survive created the social structures that would eventually give rise to complex civilizations. The Ice Age taught our ancestors that survival wasn't just about individual strength or luck. It was about human ingenuity, cooperation, and the ability to adapt to changing conditions. These lessons became embedded in human culture and passed down through generations. Modern humans still carry the psychological and physiological adaptations that developed during the Ice Age. Our ability to work in groups, our capacity for long-term planning, our drive to innovate when facing challenges, all of these traits were refined by 100,000 years of Ice Age survival. Even our modern cities reflect Ice Age survival strategies. The way we store food, heat our homes, and organize our communities all trace back to innovations first developed by our ancestors in their struggle against the ice. When you put on a warm coat, plan ahead for winter, or work together with others to solve a problem, you're using survival strategies that were perfected during humanity's greatest endurance test. The next time you complain about a cold winter day, remember your ancestors who survived for 100,000 years when winter never ended. The next time you face a seemingly impossible challenge, remember that you carry the genes of people who turned the Earth's most hostile period into humanity's greatest expansion. The Ice Age survivors didn't just endure, they innovated, explored, and laid the foundation for everything human civilization would achieve. They proved that humans don't just adapt to their environment. We master it, transform it, and use it as a stepping stone to even greater achievements. Every technology we use, every social structure we rely on, every cooperative effort we undertake, traces back to lessons learned in the frozen wastes of the Ice Age. We are not just the descendants of Ice Age survivors. We are the inheritors of their incredible legacy of innovation and determination. If this story inspired you, let me know in the comments what you think was the most impressive Ice Age innovation. Did the mammoth hunting strategies amaze you? Were you surprised by their advanced clothing technology? Or was it their social cooperation that impressed you most? And if you want to continue this incredible journey through human survival and evolution, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Next week, we'll explore one of the most mysterious chapters in human history: what happened when our ancestors first encountered the Neanderthals. Remember, every time you solve a problem through cooperation, innovation, or determination, you're honoring the incredible legacy of your Ice Age ancestors. You're not just surviving, you're thriving, just like they did.